Even if the tension in your body has lasted for years, it can be removed quickly and quite easily. Forget all those techniques that give only temporary relief. In this video, you will learn the secret of how to make the tension go away and never come back. My name is Pavel Zhavnerov and I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in anxiety disorders. Thinking that you have tension in your back, arm, or other parts of the body is a mistake. The point is not that your arm, back, or neck is tense, but that the muscle of your body is tense. In normal mode, muscles spend most of the time in a calm, relaxed state, and sometimes they contract so that we can move. In essence, a muscle in its natural mode has only two possible states. Either it is relaxed or it is tense, that is contracted. But we feel tension in the body when the muscles are in a natural semi-tense state. For clarity, look at my arm. Here is a muscle called biceps. When biceps is relaxed, it allows the arm to be extended, and when the biceps tenses, that is contracts, it lifts the arm into this position. This is natural work of the muscles. Now, in this position, I have tensed the bicep muscle, but the arm does not rise. The muscle is tense, but the arm does not move. Why? Because below there is an opposite muscle, the triceps, which is also tense and does not allow the biceps to pull the arm. This is like a tug-of-war competition. This kind of muscle tension without real movement is felt as tension in the body. Muscles cannot stay in such a semi-tense state for a long time. They begin to become inflamed and you feel pain. That is why at first you feel the muscles are toned, then you feel tension in them, and later pain appears. And the longer the tension lasts, the stronger the consequences. Here is a simple experiment. If you take an ordinary mug and hold it on your outstretched arm, after 30 seconds you will already feel discomfort in your shoulder muscles. After 1 minute the shoulder starts to burn and the arm begins to shake, and you will not reach 2 minutes because you simply will not be able to hold your arm. Approximately the same things happens to your muscles when they are in a semi-tense state. Why do muscles switch from a normal state to a semi-tense mode? Is it some kind of malfunction, a system error of the body, or some disease? In fact, this is all completely natural and normal. The reason is that your nervous system is in an excited state. Imagine a sprinter who is about to run a 100-meter race to set a new world record. While he is walking to the starting line, his muscles are calm and relaxed. When he takes a starting position, the muscles are already toned, the heartbeat and pulse speed up, blood circulation accelerates, and the body prepares to run at full power. Then the actual start and real running begin, when all the muscles are fully engaged. Your nervous system is in the same state as that of the runner, but at the moment when he has just taken the starting position and is waiting for the signal to run. Your nervous system prepares your body in this way as if it thinks that you are in danger and that at some point you will have to either fight it or run away from it. If you were in a calm, relaxed state, it will be harder for you to cope with a threat than if you were already prepared. Roughly speaking, this gives you a better chance of survival. However, we live in a time when many dangers are no longer real and life-threatening, but psychological, existing in our mind. But the nervous system does not care, it still prepares your body. That is a person who has a panic attack and is convinced that they are about to die emotionally and physically feels the same as a person who has been sentenced to execution and actually has guns pointed at them. Why did the nervous system switch to an excited state? This some kind of malfunction? Indeed, you are not an athlete at starting line. You live an ordinary life. So why does the nervous system think that you are in danger and need to be prepared for something? The reason is your increased level of anxiety. Here is the simple test to determine whether you have problems with anxiety. Answer one simple question. How often during the day do you experience anxious reactions? Worry, concern, a feeling of insecurity, anxiety, fear, or panic. Any of these is an anxious reactions. So if you have fewer than two such reactions per day, everything is fine and your anxiety level is average. If there are 3 or more, it is elevated. If there are more than 6 per day, it is high. And if anxiety is continuous, then you are in an acute anxiety excitation state. The more often anxious reactions occur during the day, the higher level of anxiety and the stronger excitation of the nervous system is. This is because the level of excitation of the nervous system is equal to the level of your anxiety. It is surprising, but your emotional state directly affects your physical state, and the brain is responsible for this. When you perceive a situation as dangerous and feel anxiety on an emotional level, at that moment your brain sends a signal to adrenal glands to release adrenaline, which leads to a surge of excitation in your nervous system. This explains the fact that all techniques aimed at relieving tension give only a temporary effect. You influence the calming of the nervous system, but your level of anxiety does not decrease in any way. As a result, after some time, the nervous system returns to an excited state, and with it, the tension in the body returns. This conclusion will help you give up all previously known ways of relieving tension. It is very simple. Working directly with body tension is useless, because it is a consequence of an excited nervous system, which in turn is a consequence of increased anxiety. Therefore, if you want to permanently eliminate tension in the body and prevent it from appearing again, you need to reduce your level of anxiety. But the saddest thing that is many people continue to look for techniques and ways to somehow relieve the tension itself in the body. This is actually a big mistake. If your nervous system is excited to the point that it already produces tension, this means that your anxiety level is already quite high. It has become this way because it has been increasing for years, and this process continues without any pauses. If you ignore your anxiety and continue to look for ways to relieve tension, then over time your anxiety will become even higher. As a result, either the tension will turn into pain or other symptoms of an excited nervous system will appear, such as weakness, dizziness, blood pressure spikes, tightness in the chest, abdominal discomfort, and others. Here is a case of my client Vasya. He decided to meditate twice a day to cope with tension, and at first it helped a lot. After a week he felt that his level of tension had decreased by about 30%, but then the tension level gradually began to increase again, and after a couple of months it returned to its previous level. At the same time, Vasya was already meditating every day. He understood the following: if I feel this level of tension now, what will happen if I stop meditating? Then he had to add stretching, calming tears, and give up bad habits. In the end, it came down to the fact that he spent a lot of time every day on ways to reduce tension, but the tension itself first decreased and then returned to the same level. But now Vasya also began to worry about what would happen if he stopped doing all these things. What if the tension turned into pain and he would no longer live normally? Why did this happen? The point is that while Vasya was relieving tension in the body, his anxiety level continued to grow, and as a result, this increased the tension itself. Therefore, all these methods reduced the intensity of tension but could not eliminate it completely. How can you quickly make sure that your tension is caused by anxiety? This is a real problem because you got to a doctor with tension and they'll tell you that is a magnesium deficiency, chondrosis, spinal curvature, or something else. So here are the signs that tension in the body is due to increased anxiety. The first sign is that you have increased anxiety. This sounds trivial, but is extremely important. If since childhood you have been anxious, suspicious, or emotional, and over the years your anxiety has gradually increased, this is a significant sign. The second sign is that you have other symptoms of increased anxiety: weakness in the legs, unsteady gait, trembling in the body, abdominal discomfort, headaches, a lump in the throat, extrasystolize, blood pressure spikes, and others. The third sign is that when your level of stress in your life decreased, you feel that the problem with tension in the body also go away. If the cause were chondrosis, posture issues, and so on, reducing stress would not affect it. The fourth sign is that breathing techniques and relaxation techniques relieve tension. Strange as it may seem, this is also a sign. These techniques reduce your anxiety, calm you emotionally, and thus temporarily reduce the excitation of the nervous system. They do not give a long-term result, but they clearly show that the cause of tension is anxiety. The fifth sign is 100% reliable. This is when during the process of reducing anxiety, all bodily symptoms, including tension, go away. Think about it yourself. The lower the level of anxiety, the calmer the nervous system becomes, and the fewer symptoms appear in the body. There is always a direct correspondence. Anxiety decreased by 30% and symptoms also decrease by 30%. I even had a case where a woman came to me with high anxiety, tension, and neck pains that had reached the point of sharp shooting pains. After we reduced her anxiety, not only did the pain and tension disappeared, but the shooting pains also stopped. This happened because the muscles were so tight and inflamed that they were compressing the nerve endings. But please forget the word psychosomatics, otherwise you will end up in esotericism. Some sources say that if you have tension in the neck and shoulders, it is about control and responsibility. If it's in the jaw, it is about suppressed emotions and anger. If it is in abdomen, it is about anxiety. And if it is in lower back, it is about fear and instability. The truth is that tension will always appear according to your physiological characteristics. Each of us has our own height, weight, body type, structural features, heredity, sensitivity, and level of physical fitness. Anxiety triggers many different symptoms at once, but the strongest manifestations are a specific combination that corresponds to your physical characteristics. Therefore, you should not interpret the places where you feel tension as some kind of signs. Most likely, these are simply our physiologically weakest muscles, where muscle clamps appear faster. Most often, these are small muscles that are not involved much in everyday life. This is easy to see in examples. If a person initially has a sensitive gastrointestinal tract, many symptoms of an excited nervous system will be related to digestion. If someone has a weak vestibular symptom, they will experience unsteady walking and dizziness. In other words, the nervous system manifests itself most strongly in the weakest areas. For example, one client worked as a manicurist and had constant tension in her neck and back, and even twitching in the index finger of her right hand. This was because she spent most of the workday in this position. There is no mysticism or hidden meaning here. Everything is very logical. How does tension in the body reinforce itself over time? Tension is the first sign of increased anxiety, and the higher the anxiety, the stronger the tension becomes. This is where the problem arises. Tension in the body is the main cause of sleep problems. It is simple. When we sleep, the body is in a relaxed state. Therefore, when you try to fall asleep, the more relaxed you are, the faster the body switches to a sleep mode. But tension in the body interferes with this transition. This does not necessarily mean insomnia. It may be that you take longer to fall asleep, your sleep becomes more superficial, you wake up often during the night, or you wake up early in the morning and cannot fall asleep again. When you lack sleep, your physical condition immediately worsens, which ultimately increases anxiety. This creates a vicious cycle. Anxiety creates tension in the body, tension worsens sleep, lack of sleep increases anxiety, and anxiety further increases tension. When tension turns to the pain, this also increases anxiety. Remember how irritable you become when you have a headache. This is because the physical discomfort increases emotionality and anxiety. The stronger the tension and the worse your physical well-being, the higher the anxiety, and this leads to even stronger tension in the body. You have already guessed how to get rid of tension forever. You need to reduce anxiety. But here you may think, okay, I need to stop anxiety. I will learn some magical breathing, start meditating, or distract myself with positive thoughts when anxiety appears. But you cannot deceive your nervous system. If anxiety has arisen, a surge of nervous system excitation has already occurred, and even if you calm yourself down quickly, this will not change the situation. You need to learn how to calm yourself after anxiety appears, but to prevent anxiety from arising in the situations where it currently occurs. Think about it. You react with anxiety to the same situations in your life. When you think about your problems, your plans, or when something unclear happens, you perceive all these situations as dangerous, so it's natural that anxiety arises. Everything depends on your perception of the situations, not on the situations themselves. Let me give you an example. When I was studying to become a clinical psychologist, we had practice in psychiatry hospital on 8 Marta Street. The head of department explained everything to us and then asked who will go with her on rounds through the wards. To give you context, the wards were behind steel doors because there were mentally ill people. There are some with schizophrenia, some with paranoia. I volunteered to go. We walked down the corridor surrounded by patients and I was scared. I thought someone might attack me. Meanwhile, the head of department walked as if she were strolling in a park. Nothing threatened me in that situation, but I perceived it as a dangerous and therefore felt anxious. The head of department perceived the situation correctly as safe and therefore did not worry. This shows that perception ultimately determines whether anxiety arises or not. And the more often anxiety arises, the higher overall anxiety level becomes. Simply, but your anxiety level and how often you feel anxious during the day do not depend on you or your lifestyle. Everything depends on how many events in your life you perceive as dangerous. Here is an interesting example. One client experienced fear and anxiety every time someone mentioned food. Someone would say, "Let's order something to eat," and he would immediately feel anxious. He was about to drink tea, again anxiety. His mother called and said what she had eaten that day, again anxiety. This may seem strange to you, but the point is that the client perceives the situation as dangerous. What is important is that if you or I perceive the situation the same way, we will also feel anxiety. The reason is that once he choked very badly and began to fear that during eating he might choke, suffocate, and die. After he started feeling anxious before meals, he began to consider this abnormal. Now, whenever he heard someone mention food, he immediately fears that these inadequate anxious reactions will happen again. This is exactly what triggers the anxiety. Even in such complex and confusing cases, it is possible to get rid of anxiety and reduces the overall anxiety level. To do this, you need to learn just one thing. Change your perception as a situation you consider dangerous. This is a not easy process, but anyone can master it. That's all for now. Goodbye, friends.